So the other day I made a video about things that obviously I don't buy anymore, or
Mic trigger. Mic lock button is on. Finish recording.
and obviously as to why. So I put that video right before this one, and I just thought I'm going to do a top 6 video of things that I am listening to either on Spotify or YouTube or somewhere online. And this is a top 6. So at number 6 is Mother Mother, which are an indie rock band that do really fun guitar riffs, and check them out. They are really, really good. At number 5 is Nurse with Wound. Now, Nurse with Wound are on Spotify, but they were a band that I found out from a guy on YouTube, just really, really creepy. It's like every a lot of their stuff is, abandoned, post-apocalyptic. It's really like ambient, and it's like somebody's lurking from the depths of every single corner. It's like going into closed toy shops and I don't know, just different corners of anywhere, and it's like if there was a dark side to Mr. Ben, then obviously that's where Nurse with Wound takes you. It's like otherworldly. Everything is taken from these innocent places, and it's like all of a sudden they take you to this dark corner of our minds where we like to go. And the music is not stuff that I would listen to in the middle of the night. And speaking about things that I wouldn't listen to in the middle of the night, at number 4 is the Caretaker, Everywhere. The Caretaker Everywhere. Now, this project is, not only is it a sinister listen, it is a difficult listen. It is a sad album. It's a depressing album. It's a cold album. It's a warm album. It's an absolutely over the edge. It starts off really warm and really happy. This album was written to, it's more a dementia or Alzheimer's simulator than it is an actual album. It is a work of art, and really, really is a very difficult listen. It's not an album you can just sit down and listen, while you're, having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. This is more of an album to sort of, it's like jumping into deep water, or it's like you're being pulled from the shallow to the deep end. It really is an album not to be taken lightheartedly, and it's certainly not an album to be listening to at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. This album is also very difficult, knowing if you know people that have had dementia, and if you've read into dementia and Alzheimer's, it really, really is a difficult listen. It is an amazing masterpiece. It starts off with trumpets, giving you those jazz recordings of old from 1930s. It then sort of starts where you can just about hear those 1930s recordings. However, it's more sort of faint and more kind of ambient. But then it goes into nothingness, because they're trying to hold on to those memories, but the memories of those times are slipping away from them. It really, really is a great piece of work, and it's more a work of art than an actual piece of music. And the electronic producer who made this piece of work said that he wanted to simulate what people with dementia and Alzheimer's were going through. The producer who made this piece of work went into the extensive research into going through this before releasing it out there. Now, the caretaker, and at the end of time, and the caretaker everywhere was available on vinyl. Unfortunately, it's no longer available on vinyl. However, the album is still there on Bandcamp, and it's also there on YouTube. I really highly recommend this album, but it's one of those. It's a sit down and listen. It's more of a sit down and take in more than a sit down and listen. And speaking of taking things in, we're going to literally albums that take your breath away. At number 3 is at number 3 is Brain Drill, and literally they're a death metal band that throws you into every corner of, I mean, they're a death metal band, but they're like, punishing beats, amazing guitar solos, the lead guitar just throws you everywhere, and it's just absolutely punishing and amazing at the same time. Speaking of punishing and amazing, at number 2 is a punk band which is called Sauna Youth. Now, Sauna Youth are the earliest stuff played around with that new wave rock, and then they sort of went sort of punk, and then they sort of went indie guitar pop. And they're a British band, but they're very, very underrated. And they're just like, their early stuff was really good, and then their later stuff was also really good. Even their bad stuff was really good. Because they're such an underrated band, it's really hard to find a band that does, and even like underrated bands that do bad stuff as good as their good stuff. They mellowed out. The band changed members, but also changed its sound. The bass guitarist and the guitarist changed, and but the singer and the drummer managed to stay in the band. They're a fantastic lineup, and that's Sauna Youth. And number 1 is the Barbies. Now, the Barbies are a band that, unfortunately, there was a guy who played with Blondie, and he sadly passed away. And he'd also written lyrics for Blondie too. They're just a phenomenal punk band. Unfortunately, a lot of their work is lost, but there's one song that has managed to be found from the wreckage. They're an American punk band, and they can be found on Bandcamp and YouTube. Unfortunately, they've only 1 or 2 songs, and most of their work is lost. There was an album that got signed, but unfortunately got lost. And they're an amazing band if you like your American punk, especially early, I think it was like kind of 80s American punk. But there's also a bit of new wave creeping in. There's that lovely sort of garage psychedelic organ that creeps in, which works really, really well with that, sort of era. And it's just sort of bubblegum playing, but it's really, really great. There's that nice guitar which floats across really nicely, and just some really nice poppy vocals. And it's great to hear that there's not very many bands that that come across as it's really, really hard to put those bands into that wonderful, that wonderful sound that is. As I mentioned in my other video, as I forgot to mention in my other video, record labels don't take risks anymore. As I said in my other video, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't file sharing websites, there wasn't YouTube or Spotify, or there wasn't a way to see what other people were listening to. There wasn't a way to see, there wasn't a way to get inspired by other people's music collections or music tastes. It was just, there was no way of adding things to a playlist back then. It was, you bought a CD or a vinyl and it had 12 songs. And you had that 12 songs and you had to like those 12 songs. So this band had to be, the band that you had to buy had to be the best band. But also in the early 2000s, we were seeing record labels take risks. We were seeing bands take risks. We were seeing artists take risks. And now we're not seeing anybody take risks. So if you hear something that's good, it's because that band or that label have taken the risks. And it's like, we're not hearing anything. We're not hearing anything that's good because nobody is taking chances. Anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm going to put it out right now.
One notification. YouTube. 2-minute mic trigger. Button. Mic lock. Finish recording. Button.